we had a captain back in 2013 that was with the Lafayette Police Department, and he was running the juvenile program, juvenile investigations, and he looked at the numbers and couldn't understand why kids were either fighting the police or running from the police with no other charges. And so he went to seek out some training because here in Indiana at that time, our academy did not train officers on how to deal with teenagers. It was only adult practices. So we kind of took it upon ourselves, and that's when he found strategies for youth and brought it to Tippecanoe County. And when I went through Train the Trainer, I was so impressed with the training. I had already had at least 15 years of law enforcement under my belt, and I just knew I hadn't done it right, especially with the teenagers. And so I took this training and I immediately said, I want to be a trainer. I want to teach this to other officers. And so I took it on that time with a couple other colleagues, and we've been doing it ever since. If you don't make it mandatory, you're going to have some people doing things that other officers in your department don't understand why you're doing them. And I think that causes conflict inside your organization. You know, why didn't you just arrest this kid? You know, why didn't you just cuff him up and take him over to juvenile intake? Well, I was trying to gather some information to make a sound decision. And if you don't have that same wavelength, I guess, in why you're doing a certain thing, it could just cause some turmoil. I can give you an example. We had a fair issue, and it's been shortly after we started doing this. Myself and another officer, another deputy, were dealing with this irate 19-year-old black male, very tall, very grown up looking for his age. He looked like he was 30 years old, but he was 19. And then we later found out he had a 12-year-old kind of mentality because he was special needs. But we couldn't tell that at the time and didn't know it. But me and that deputy knew exactly what we were doing in the questioning in which we were talking to this kid, trying to de-escalate him. He was doing what we were saying or asking him to do. However, he was very loud, very vocal, and a crowd had gathered up. But I knew why my deputy partner was asking him certain questions, and I knew why he was being patient. And it ended up being an interaction where I wouldn't say it was positive. I mean, he didn't like us, but nobody touched each other. We didn't hurt him. He didn't hurt us. Nothing turned physical. But afterwards, when it was over, we had other deputies telling us that we were, why didn't you just cuff that kid up and take him to jail? In my day, we would have beat that kid down and put him in jail. It was very disheartening to hear. But we had citizens telling us how great we did. You guys are awesome. I don't know how you do your job. You're the most patient guys I've ever seen. So there's a difference between the citizens saw what we did as positive. Our peers saw what we did as weak and negative. It was very, very interesting. I use that story when I can, but I've never had another one like that in which we were absolutely torn down by our peers, but congratulated by the citizens. And I knew at that point we needed to train everybody. Everybody needed to know why we did what we did, instead of letting our egos get in the way and cause a big problem. Because I guarantee you we would have been on 50, 60 different cell phones if we had to go hands-on with this young man. And luckily it ended up being as good as a situation as we could have asked for. If you have policies about how you handle youth, if you have procedures in how you handle youth, and then you have the training that gives you those tools on how to do it, then you're going to be successful. You're not going to make every kid obey, there's no rule of do 1, 2, 3, 4, and every kid is going to do what you say. You're going to arrest teenagers. You're going to have conflict with them. But we are the professionals. We are the professional law enforcement officers, and we are the ones that have to train ourselves to do the best we can, and make sure we're not overpowering youth with our words, with our actions, with our stance, with our uniforms. I think that it's important that every agency makes this mandatory for all their officers. It was a really good training, great group of people. And I had one of them say to me, I can't wait to get back on the road so I can go deal with kids. And that's the first time I've ever heard that. Most police officers say, who do you hate to deal with the most? And they'll say, teenagers, juveniles, they're hard to deal with. This officer was just, I can't wait to get out there and deal with kids now. And he said it with just some enthusiasm, and I knew he meant it. He wasn't just, being corny. He was ready to go back out and deal with kids.